But right now, for more on Australia's homeless youth crisis.
Well, today, Georgie looks at two success stories. Georgie?
Thank you very much, Carl. Well, those stories in a moment, but first a reminder on the state of Australia's homeless youth. There are more than 30,000 youths on the streets every night, and in the past 20 years, the number of homeless teenagers has doubled. The Independent report is calling for $1 billion to tackle the problem, and there's a dire need for more community housing. While it's a bleak picture, there are glimmers of hope. Success stories like Darren and Beau, and they join me now with their mentor, Captain Paul Moulds. Good morning to you all.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for being here.
Right.
Paul, they are pretty startling, devastating statistics, aren't they?
They are. And, I mean, yesterday, I think we as a nation focused on that. And when we see the documentary, we'll see the faces of that. But what I hope Australia gets is this is not a lost cause. I hope that people realise that if we invest in these young people, if we have the will, we can actually get on top of this problem. And I believe it's possible, you know, not to make it so that a young person won't be homeless in Australia, that when they do become homeless, quickly we could catch them and help them back to health and back to security and education and jobs and all the things they need.
Darren and Beau, you were two of the central characters in this documentary. How hard was it having a camera follow you and documenting what you were going through?
It wasn't really hard at the time because I was pretty well out of it, so it didn't really matter, like, didn't really worry me about it, you know. It was just like being did on like film, so yeah.
We're seeing a little bit of an excerpt from the documentary there, and I was so moved by that particular scene of you sitting on that bed there, Darren, because I remember there was a line where you said, "I've got nothing to look forward to."
Yeah.
When you see that vision, here you are, of course, having an episode after, I believe, taking ice.
Yeah.
Is it hard to look at that vision?
Not really. It's a wake-up because you don't realise that you're actually acting that way. You think that you're acting quite normal.
You were abandoned at the age of 8, weren't you? You got home one day, your mum had packed up and left.
Yeah.
8, with your older brother. Just give us a quick... tell us what happened.
I just got home from school one day and, like, all mum's stuff was gone and that. Like, we didn't really think much of it. So, like, about 3 days later, we started selling drugs to support ourselves.
And it was a downward spiral from there.
Yeah.
Paul, you first came across Darren. He was living in a hole in the wall that was about that big, wasn't he?
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's not an uncommon occurrence. I mean, when young people hit the streets, often they don't find their way straight away to a youth shelter. They stay at mates' places. Sometimes they live in all manner of unusual and places. And that's why part of our response to youth homelessness has to be being out on the street, looking for these young people and trying to connect with them as early as possible.
Beau, you've been living on the street since you were in your early teens, I understand. Yeah. And how far into that was it that you discovered you had a severe mental illness?
It wasn't until I was about 25. I saw doctors and that, but nothing was ever diagnosed. And it should have been diagnosed a long time ago. So I suppose one good thing about the documentary was it got me the help that I sort of needed.
What was your lowest point, do you think?
I had a lot of low points. If you're looking from like a mental stability point of view, it was probably when I was not well. That's when the documentary, when Sasha was doing that, like filming then. I don't remember a lot about what happened or anything. I mean, I can only go on what I was sort of saying. It was pretty hard to actually sit down and watch it again.
It's confronting stuff, isn't it?
Yeah,
especially
definitely.
when you were having some psychotic episodes and taking a lot of it out on Paul. I mean, it's pretty heavy-going stuff, Paul, and I wonder, there must be times when it's extremely frustrating. What keeps you going? I mean,
Look, could I say, the frustrating thing isn't the young people's behaviour. The frustrating thing is that the system, that we have so much affluence in this country, there is so much opportunity, and yet we don't seem to be able to put in place those basic services to get the help to the kids that urgently need it. I mean, these two guys are examples that if we can get the help to them, they can actually change and they can recover and they can have a normal place in the community. So the frustrating thing for me isn't so much the young people. I just wish there were more places, more opportunities for them to get the help they need.
Beau, where are you today? Tell us how you are now.
I am doing really well, actually. The documentary was done about 2 or 3 years ago, so that period of life was, in my life was about 2 years ago. Since then, I've really got on top of the mental illness side of things. I've got my own unit I've had for a couple of years in the same place, and yeah, my cat's going well. And
your hope is to do social work and help other young people, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
And Darren, tell us where you're at.
I'm just trying to keep my place at the moment. Yeah, it's just different having my own place.
And they tell me you're very artistic and creative.
Yeah,
You're
I am,
hoping
yeah.
to turn that into a career, maybe?
Not really, no. I'd like to do
Keep it as
just,
a hobby?
Yeah, just as a hobby, yeah.
But, and mentally and physically, how are you going in terms of the drugs
good.
and the addiction? Are you?
Yeah, I'm on top of it, yeah. I would just say just about, like, kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah. Is it a daily grind?
Oh, yeah, it is, yeah.
So just a day at a time?
Yeah.
And what makes you happy these days?
Well, seeing Paul, well, yeah.
He's an extraordinary man, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I really want to thank you both for coming in and sharing your stories because, as Paul says, you offer so much hope and inspiration. You're incredibly courageous men, and it's a real pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
And Paul, what can I say? You're equally extraordinary, so thank you. We really urge everyone to watch that documentary on Thursday night because it paints a very real picture and hopefully will change attitudes and hopefully, of course, bring in donations for Oasis because you're reliant on donations for about 50% of your funding, aren't you?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, the more Australia supports these young people, the more we can do to make an opportunity for every kid out there.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul. Okay, tomorrow we're looking at the issue of teen pregnancy and the difficulties facing young homeless mums. I hope you can join us for that. Back to you, Carl and Lisa.
It is important stuff. Thank you very much for that, Georgie, and to the gentleman as well.